So now that I'm back in Michigan, came back on Monday. It was kind of late on Monday night, possibly around 10:30, 10:40-ish. That was at least when the plane was on the tarmac, basically going to the exits to get into the airport in Grand Rapids. But I'm going to talk about the trip out to LA. That was on Friday, March 31st, 2023. It was an early morning. I believe I got up at maybe 3 or 4 in the morning. Had my stuff all packed. I packed on Thursday, so I had everything all set, ready to go. And I had just a carry-on bag, which is it's kind of like a suitcase that has the bar that you can pull up and just wheel it. So had that, pretty much packed it as much as I could with, had a phone charger, had some books in case we had a long layover, I could read something. And then I had a lot of clothes for those 3 nights that we were going to be in Los Angeles. So the first plane, it was a connecting flight. We had a flight from Grand Rapids to Denver, and then there was a 2-hour layover in Denver, and then it was out to LA. So went into the airport, my dad and I. My mom had driven us out there because she thought that it would be better to have somebody to be dropped off because of the price to park your vehicle at the airport. It would add up quick with having it be 3 nights, and if something were to happen where we'd be stuck in Denver or wherever due to a delay or a cancellation or something, it could be possibly 4 days, and then you never know. So I'm back from my trip to Los Angeles, and it was a pretty late return, pretty much around, I think I got into Grand Rapids, Michigan around maybe 10:40, 10:45-ish. But I'm going to talk about the trip out to LA. The morning of going out to the trip, went out to the airport in Grand Rapids. I think it was maybe 4 in the morning I got up or so. Because we left, it was a early flight. So, went to the airport. It was my dad and I and my mom drove us over there to avoid having to pay for parking. Because if just my dad and I went, then he'd have to pay for parking to leave your vehicle, and it's quite pricey and it adds up over time. And there wouldn't be really much of a reason to add an added cost to the trip if it's unnecessary. So my mom drove us to the airport, and her car she parked in, I believe it was a parking garage they had there. We went through and got to the TSA checkpoint, and that was pretty much where she couldn't go any further from there, because if you're not flying, you can't go any further. The only way you can go any further is if there's some special exception, or you're there to help somebody get on a flight. I think maybe if you have a young child or somebody with disabilities, that you can go further down to get to aid them to help make them get to the plane. But I don't know about that at all. Just all I know is she couldn't go any further once we got to the TSA checkpoint. And the checkpoint, they had, you take off your shoes, you take off your belt, anything in your pockets, you have to empty your pockets. And so I did all that, went through, got scanned by this machine, and then they wand you down and make sure you don't have anything. I also had my smartwatch on, and I had to take the smartwatch off as well. And when I got through all the screening, one of the TSA people wanted me to take off this hat, and they had I took the hat off. They checked it. They felt around in it, looked in, made sure nothing was hidden in it, and then I was able to go through. So after getting through that, put my belt back on, put my shoes back on, put all the stuff back in my pockets that I had, and then continued on the way over to the waiting area for the flight. And in the morning, there were some thunderstorms. There was a little bit of lightning, but it wasn't too much. There wasn't too much of a thunderstorm going through. Just saw some lightning here and there. I was a little worried that it might cause a delay in the flight, but I'd rather be safe than sorry if it's really bad weather, because if there's lightning in the air, I would not want to have a problem, you know, because once you're up in the air, if something goes wrong, you're in trouble. So, but basically waited at the waiting area, was able to use the restroom as needed for just before getting on the plane and everything, and had a little bit of a wait. But then when they started boarding, my dad and I were group 4, so we had to wait quite a while to be able to board. And when we finally did get to board, they did have a thing where they were asking people if they were willing to give their bags to the airport to put on a flight, and then something where you would get your bags at your final destination. Thankfully, my dad and I didn't have to do that. We were able to get our luggage on the plane, put it in one of the overhead compartments, and the seating for the flight from Grand Rapids to Denver, my dad and I both had aisle seats in different sections because pretty much the way that the flight was, it was so packed that it couldn't be changed. The seating that they had could not be changed or edited. So we weren't in the same seats for that flight. So he was in a section, I was in a section. And yeah, so on the plane they had these little TV monitors behind the seats, so you could watch TV if you wanted to. They were handing out earbuds or headphones for the TV. I didn't take any of the headphones because I didn't really care to really watch anything or listen to what the TV was saying. I just basically had the TV on just to look at it, glance at it for a few minutes, and they did have the volume on the TVs on for a little bit when they aired a safety video that was telling us about, in the event something happens, what to do. And they said if you're in an exit row, please assist other passengers. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, ask to be reassigned, and follow all the flight attendants' instructions. And basically, if they said something about if there's unexpected turbulence, keep your seatbelt on. Just a regular safety video they played. And then when the flight took off, that was the safety video was over by the time the flight took off. And it seemed like a bit of a short flight in a way. There was they were handing out peanuts or this thing called a chocolate cluster type thing. It looked like a little cookie in a way. It was like a chunk cookie, I think, something like that. I got the zesty snacks, which is basically like a pretzel. I think it's the form of Chex Mix in a way, if there's a way to describe it. And then they also were doing drinks. There was an option if people wanted to purchase alcohol. You could get alcoholic beverages, but it came at an extra cost. But on the flight, we were able to get either a soft drink or water or juice at no extra cost. So on the first flight, I got a Sprite, and they give you a thing of ice, but I didn't use the cup of ice. I just drank it out of the can. I don't know if drinking out of the can is actually as good of an idea, but I also don't know about the ice. So I didn't want to chance anything. But yeah, I had the flight then to Denver, and it went pretty smooth. The only weird thing was when we were getting on the runway, landing in Denver. It just seemed like a little bit of a bumpy landing in a way. But that's probably because we had to go over a little bit of a mountain to get there. And yeah, it was a pretty easy going flight from Grand Rapids to Denver. So in Denver, we had a 2-hour layover. So my dad and I went to, we looked around the Denver airport. It's kind of a big airport. And we went to look and see what they had in terms of places to eat. We saw a place called Voodoo Donuts, but they said something about they don't have any cake donuts. So it looked like a lot of the selection were cake donuts, and so they didn't have pretty much any of those. So we decided, you know what, we'll look around. We'll look around a little more, see if there's anything else that we can find, some other place to eat. We saw a Wolfgang Puck's, and we went over there. My dad got a donut. Not a donut. We got bagels. He got one with cream cheese. I got a plain bagel with nothing on it. And not sure if I think my dad got a coffee or a cappuccino. I can't quite remember. He did get something to drink. I didn't get something to drink because I was all right with what I had from the plane. So we ate and then waited around a little bit, and then we went to the area to get on the plane from Denver to Los Angeles after basically wasting some time in Denver. And we got on that flight, and we were seated in the same row. And during that flight, the pilot came on before the flight took off, and they had the safety video, same safety video we had seen. And the captain said, just a warning to everybody, he said, during the beginning of this flight, for the first half hour, there's going to be some turbulence. So everybody has to keep their seatbelts on, and the flight attendants also had to buckle in, so they couldn't serve anything for a while. But that was for safety issues. I guess going over the mountains is kind of rough when you're going out of Denver to Los Angeles. So it was a pretty bit of a scary flight, I will say that, because there were points I was sweating bullets. Like my hands were literally sweating, and I was basically rubbing them on my jeans because the sweat was just really coming, and my head was like sweating a lot too. I took the hat off for a few minutes because I was sweating so bad, because it was nerve-wracking because you don't know what's going to happen. And there was a point in the flight that was really scary where the plane just feels like it's being pulled down, and the people behind us, there were some girls behind us, one of them screamed. And so that's like, I'm thinking to myself, that can't be a good sign. But luckily we got through the turbulence, and then the rest of the flight seemed all right. They had the flight attendants come by with the snacks, and some drinks. And I'm not sure if I got a Sprite or a water. I don't remember what I got to drink. I did get one of the thing of pretzels again, but I didn't eat the snack. We got into Los Angeles then. Landing was pretty easy, I guess. On the descent to the airport, the person that was sitting by the window, he opened up the shade, and on the flight over there, I saw out the window SoFi Stadium. And I told my dad, "That's SoFi Stadium out there," and there's another arena. I thought it was Staples Center, but it was actually the Forum. So, but I said, that's SoFi Stadium. So we saw SoFi Stadium on our descent over to the airport of LAX. So that was quite interesting. We landed, got off the plane, and walked through LAX a little bit. We had to ask around a few times to find out, okay, where are the shuttles? Because we had a shuttle that we were taking to a place called the Hyatt Regency. We asked around a few places, and we finally got to the area. And I will tell you, in Los Angeles, at LAX, we saw posters all outside for WrestleMania. They had the poster of the main poster, and then they had all these match posters posted outside. So it was kind of interesting because I'm thinking they're promoting WrestleMania. It seemed a little bit like a dream in a way, because WrestleMania, I've always wanted to go to it, and it was like, this is actually happening. So went to the place where the shuttles came to pick us up. The first shuttle kind of just drove right by us. Didn't even stop. And so the second shuttle that came by, I waved it down. It didn't say Hyatt Regency on it, but I talked to the driver, and she said, yeah, we're part of the same. She said, yeah, we're going to the Hyatt Regency. So my father and I got on the bus, and the lady drove us to the Hyatt Regency. She asked us if we had a ride to SoFi Stadium because she asked us what what were we in LA for, and we said, yeah, we're coming to that WrestleMania in SoFi, and she asked if we had any driver because she knew a person apparently that could drive us there. She said, yeah, you can be safe and get there, and she claimed this person that she knew worked for the hotel and did this as a side job, but she didn't give the person's full name. She just said the guy's name was G, and told my dad the number, and she said you could call him and see what he charges. And so we got into the hotel, we checked in, I went to our room, and my dad was kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to call this person yet. We got to find out about the SmackDown. There was a little bit of a problem with the tickets, too, at the hotel. So we get there. We're at the hotel. I'm on my phone looking at the tickets to try to figure out, okay, what time is this event? Because I believed it was at 5 o'clock LA time, but I wasn't sure. And I load up the tickets. I'm looking at the tickets, and all of a sudden a notification comes up on my phone that says, please update the app. The app was a company called AXS. I don't know if it means access or what it was. It's a site that I got my tickets from when I bought them through SeatGeek. So I update the app, and the program kicks me out of the app. And I couldn't get back in. I tried my password, couldn't get back in. So I'm like, that's not good. And I finally talked to their customer service. I said, hey, this isn't good right now. What's going on? I said, I updated the app. It was working fine before I put in the update. I said, I paid good money for those tickets to SmackDown, and we traveled a long way to get here to Los Angeles, and I'm not very happy about this. And if I don't get to go to SmackDown, I will be getting my money back. I said, I'm not going to be ripped off and have somebody get the money for tickets and I don't even get to go because your app doesn't seem to work. I was really angry at that point. But the person said, okay, shut off your Wi-Fi and try it then. I guess I had to turn on my mobile data. I don't like doing that because when I use mobile data, I get charged extra for my phone because I didn't buy a mobile data plan. So I turned on my mobile data and was able to get the tickets. And I just I got into the page and left on the app and left the thing open. I was like, I'm not going to close out this thing. I'm just going to keep my phone plugged in, keep it charged, and when we go to the event, then they can scan it and it'll be done. Then I can turn off my mobile data. So we went downstairs after that whole fiasco, ate something, but before even that, my dad was like, he's like, I want to ask you something. This guy this lady only gave us the name of G. He's like, what do you think about this? I said, that seems kind of sketchy. I said, because, if we don't have a full name, if something happens, we don't have anybody to, say anything about. And it's better if we had like a full name, because this guy might not even work for the hotel. Could be a very nice person, but then again, we're not from California, so we didn't want anything to happen. We decided, let's just be safe and go with an Uber, because Uber will give you the name of your driver, their driver's license, or their plate, so you know where you're going and who you're meeting up with. So we decided to go with Uber, and my dad even went downstairs to the front desk and he asked the people over at the front desk, he asked one of them, which one's better between these two different companies, Lyft or Uber? And the front desk person said, well, usually they go with Uber because Uber is fast and reliable. They said with Lyft, sometimes Lyft takes so long that they end up canceling their ride with Lyft. So we went with Uber. We went and ate at this diner type area at the hotel. We had Reuben sandwiches, and they give you a lot of fries. But after we ate, we went back up to the room, and my dad started thinking that might be at 5 o'clock. He's like, I think the event was going to start at 4:45. So we got an Uber. I believe we left at like maybe 4:30ish. So we ended up going through rush hour traffic with the Uber. And we got there in pretty good time. People outside, there were still people lined up. And I asked somebody, I said, did the show already start? And somebody said, yeah, it started at 5 o'clock. So we might have missed like maybe 10 minutes of it. The first segment, I think, was still going on when my dad and I got in. I told the people scanning the tickets, I said, I've got my ticket and I've got his ticket. So my dad and I, they scanned both tickets. My dad had to go through a screening thing. He told the people at the screening that were scanning us to get in, he goes, I have double knee replacements. And they scanned him once and it beeped, and then they had to scan him again and it beeped. And it's because of his knees, he has knee replacements. So they finally decided, just go on through. And so we got in there, and as we were getting to our seats, I was listening to what was going on in the ring. The wrestler Sami Zayn, he was talking about the Usos, and they were doing a promo hyping up the match for Saturday night. And each time we thought we were close to our seats, they kept sending us further down. So the seats I had were quite good. It was a pretty good section, and I didn't know that we had that good of seats, because it didn't look like it when I purchased the tickets. But I wasn't going to complain either way, because I was like, these are a good view. It's a great seat. We were able to see everything that was going on in the ring. So I didn't have any complaints about that. And so we watched the SmackDown event. It was 2 hours. And then there was the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame was good, but some of the people talked a little bit too long. Like, one of the people that was going in, Stacy Keibler, there was a lot of talk before she even got out there. You would have thought that she even wasn't there or something, because they just kept going on and on and on before she actually came out. She finally did come out to the stage, got in there and talked a little bit, and that was a long speech that she gave. But I was able to get some pictures of that. And then they had, I think the Great Muta was one of the people. I never really followed Muta's career. I saw him wrestle maybe in WCW a few times, and they showed his farewell match, because it was against one of the WWE performers, a guy called Shinsuke Nakamura. They only could show a few clips of it because they don't own the rights to New Japan. So they showed some of those clips and talked about Muta, and he came out, said a few things. They had Ric Flair come out and talk about him too for a little bit, and Muta just said, I'm thankful and grateful to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame," and then he did his famous spitting of mist into the air, and that was his induction. They did Andy Kaufman as well, because of Andy Kaufman's feud with Jerry Lawler, which got a lot of publicity. They had Jerry Lawler on a video screen talking about Andy Kaufman being inducted. Lawler couldn't be there because he was recovering from suffering a stroke, so he wasn't able to be there. But Andy Kaufman's family came out, accepted the Hall of Fame induction on his behalf. So Andy Kaufman was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and his family thanked the fans and WWE for getting him into the Hall of Fame. So that was 3 of 5 people that were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Let's see. There was also the Warrior Award recipient, which went to a referee named Timothy White. He had been with the WWE for quite some time. He had helped out Andre the Giant back in the day. Followed him around and was like an assistant to Andre the Giant for a while. And he worked with WWE for years. He even had his own bar for a while. And some of the wrestlers were talking about how sometimes they joked that sometimes when Timothy White needed something fixed at the bar, like a jukebox that didn't work, they'd have the wrestlers do a segment there and they'd break it. They said a lot of jokes about that and talked about Timothy White. They talked about Timothy White. His family came out and talked about Timothy White. And he had a brother that looks a lot like him. So he was there, and they accepted the award on his behalf. The surprising thing about the Warrior Award this year was, in previous years when they've done it, they had Dana Warrior, Ultimate Warrior's widow, and she would come out there with the Warrior Award and introduce the inductee and hand them the award. She wasn't there this year. So she wasn't there to do the award. So they had a few other people that talked about Timothy White before and introduced his family to the stage. And they did that. So Warrior Award recipient was Timothy White. And then the headlining Hall of Famer was Rey Mysterio. He came out, talked about how he got into the business, where he started, about his parents, and how they thought that maybe it was just a passing phase, that he wouldn't end up becoming a wrestler, that it was just something he had to get the experience and get it out of his system. But he kept at it. And then he talked about some of the financial struggles that he and his wife went through, and how she made some sacrifices so that he could fulfill his dream of becoming a professional wrestler, and also help make ends meet. So, yeah, Rey Mysterio had a long speech, so it's kind of hard to keep track of all of it. And during the segment, there was a part where his son, Dominic, whom he was having a match with the next night, got up and walked out of the Hall of Fame with this group that he's with called the Judgment Day. I had thought that they were going to do something where Dominic was going to interrupt the Hall of Fame. But usually on the Hall of Fame, they try to steer away from gimmicks and storylines. That was the only kind of gimmick thing that they did. And from what I was reading, there were reports that Dominic, it was hard for him not to get a little bit emotional when his dad was going into the Hall of Fame. But he had to make sure to hide it, because you don't want to ruin the storyline for a match that was going on. But, yeah, that was it for the Hall of Fame. They had 5 inductees. In previous years, there were more inductees, and it used to go a lot longer. I don't know if it was just because of COVID restrictions or what the deal was. They just didn't have a whole lot this year. And they used to announce the Hall of Fame inductees like a lot earlier. Sometimes even by Royal Rumble time, they would have had some of the inductees announced. But I got these tickets for the show back around November. And I got them because I thought, well, we're going to be in LA. Why don't we go to the show before so we can go to the Hall of Fame, pretty much do everything that we can do, like view wrestling-wise. And there was a show that they were promoting the next day, and I believe noon or 1 o'clock, called NXT Stand and Deliver. But I didn't want to go to that show because we had other things planned for Saturday before night 1 of WrestleMania. We had some stuff planned that we were going to do, pretty much see some of LA, so that we wouldn't just be there for just the wrestling. It would be a way to see some of LA as well. So we were going to do that the next day. One thing I didn't mention about SmackDown was they had this Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and one of the talent in that match, the guy's name is LA Knight. He was getting a massive amount of cheers. Fans seem to gravitate toward him, I think because he has this charisma about him. But he didn't win. It came down to Braun Strowman. I think the other guy's name was Bronson Reed, and then there was also Bobby Lashley. Lashley was able to win the match at the very end, eliminating Bronson Reed, but pretty much when it came down to those three, I didn't really care who won, because they were all big names, and I thought If Braun Strowman wins, good for him. He'd be a 2-time winner of it. Bronson Reed wins, it might help his career. Bobby Lashley, it would be kind of giving him a consolation prize for not being on WrestleMania. Bobby Lashley ended up winning, so I'm wondering if that might have been actually a consolation prize, because he was supposed to be wrestling at WrestleMania, but there were some issues that had happened. His opponent had pulled out, claiming physical health, but there were a lot of rumors about why the match wasn't going to go down. But if it was just because the person didn't want to wrestle him, then the person, Bray Wyatt, is the person that Bobby Lashley was supposed to fight. They were supposed to fight at a SummerSlam a while back too, and Wyatt allegedly declined that and didn't like that idea either. So when he got released the first time, I think it was because he just wasn't getting along with people and creative and everything. But I would say if he's just refusing to do business, I don't know if they should keep him or not, because if he's gonna cost people a spot on the WrestleMania card because he doesn't want to work with them, because he doesn't think they're up to his standards, if that's actually true, because I'm not sure. The wrestling dirt sheets will write sometimes anything just to get those clicks and to cause controversy. But I would say if Bray Wyatt's not going to compete and he's always going to be hurt or something's going to come up, then I don't know if the WWE should even keep him or not. But they'll probably look into the situation and find out more about that. But Bobby Lashley won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. So it was a pretty good night. And when we got out of the arena, we were able to get an Uber. And wasn't too difficult to get an Uber, so we got the Uber, got back to the hotel, were able to relax a little bit, and then I closed out the AXS app and I turned off my mobile data, and pretty much at that point I was tired, went to bed. So that was the end of night 1 in Los Angeles. But just on a side note, on the ride over to the Staples Center Crypto Arena, we were I didn't know that Crypto Arena was so far away from the hotel. Because when we were riding in the Uber, we went past SoFi Stadium and I thought, oh, we're almost there. Nope, not even close. Because the building next to SoFi Stadium is the old LA Forum. And I believe the Lakers might have played there a long time ago. But Staples Center is a ways away from SoFi Stadium. So, yeah. But at least SoFi, I was told, wasn't that far from our hotel. So it wouldn't take as long to get there. It would still take a while, but not as long as it took to get to Crypto Arena. But despite that, we were able to make it to the show. Didn't miss a whole lot. So that was good that we didn't miss too much of SmackDown. And we didn't miss any of the Hall of Fame. So I'd say that's a win.